Here we go, in all of our lives. All right, so thanks for joining us, guys. We're doing a webinar today on golden ticket to Raffles. These are basically just our top tips about what we like to do when we consider how to do a DM for Raffles, and then all the things around that make sense to promote that raffle in the wider world. We are doing quite a few of these, looking forward to next year. And if that's something you guys want to talk to us about, that would be great. We'd love to do that. But equally, if it's something that you guys can handle in-house, this is just a presentation really to help you to figure out how to do that. If you haven't done it before, or maybe just to think about doing it a little bit differently to how you've done it before. All right, so here we go. I've got to put this legalese up first. Basically, we're recording this. And we're recording it so that we can put it on our website and you can take a look at it later on if you'd like to watch it again, because why wouldn't you? Or if you want to share it around to somebody that you think might find it interesting or useful, that is absolutely fine. So yeah, we are recording this. We will put it up on our website later. You'll have access to that if you should like it. We'll also email you the link to that afterwards so that you've got access to it. Okay, so the ambitions for this morning, and I should point out that obviously I'm not Ash. It could be that today's presentation is slightly shorter than the ones maybe you've attended before. Sorry, Ash, it is a possibility, which might come as welcome news to everyone. So the ambitions for today are basically, first of all, a method to help you with planning your particular raffle, whether it's in the next few months or maybe you're thinking about doing one for the first time. Ideas to maximize income within that raffle. So how can you make that raffle have the most bang for its buck, essentially? We've got a really good example of one that we did this summer, thanks to the lovely people at St. Barnabas, Lincolnshire. And then also we're going to have a Q&A. So Chelsea, who is around somewhere, probably with a PB sign over her face, is going to be collating these questions. So if you've got one, just stick one in the chat. And she'll put those together, and then we'll have a little bit of a question and answer session at the end. This isn't to say that we're like the global experts on raffle, because we're not, but we have done quite a few raffles and we've learned a lot over the years that we've been doing them. So there are things that you are going to know, especially the legal terms of raffles, that maybe we don't, but there are some things that maybe we can help you to look at and think about whether that might actually be useful for you going forward. All right, so whenever we do an appeal, and some of you will have done an appeal with us before, we look at a few different options and a timeline essentially for how we plan these things. So the first thing that we look at is how we measure the success of whatever it is we're going to do, because that impacts how we monitor it essentially. The second thing is audience. So who are we actually going to target? Who are we looking at to be participants in whatever it is we're doing? The third thing is proposition. And proposition is basically, what do you need the money for? And we'll go over that in a little bit more detail. Planning and timing. As I mentioned before, we're looking at a lot of raffles that are going to be starting probably at the end of January. And we've just finished a batch of raffles that went out in July this year. So that is kind of the timeline that we're looking at, but we'll go into why we actually do that in a little bit. And then finally, creative. So that's actually the fun part, but we don't do that until last, which can be very frustrating, but it's worth the wait when we actually get there. Okay, so the first thing is we need to actually consider what success looks like. I'd say for a lot of charities, it looks like that. Money. Not exclusively, but it could be an important factor in actually considering doing a raffle. I think this is another big thing, especially this year, awareness and keeping donors actually informed of what you're doing. There's been a lot of really interesting and different strategies that charities have employed this year in terms of what they're actually talking about. And I think there's no right or wrong answer because nobody really knows what's going on, essentially. So it's been really interesting to learn about what's been successful for certain charities that we've been working with, but also ones that we just are friends with and we know, and they've told us what's been happening. New supporters. And I say new supporters maybe in a different way to the way that they've supported you before. So one of the examples of this might be you're looking at lottery players who play the lottery, but then you're kind of shifting them over into doing the raffle as well. So how do we measure the success? Well, money, yeah, that's a good one. But that's a pretty finite thing to be able to measure. So that's one indicator of success. I think this is the thing that we've noticed a lot this year. So we have worked on raffles at the beginning and the middle of this year, as I mentioned. And what's been happening around that is we've seen a little bit of a lift in the summer raffles because of the other things that have been sent out this year. Now, obviously, we are in the middle of a pandemic. Nobody really knows what's going on. And maybe this year is a complete anomaly. But I'd like to think that these things lead on to each other. And in fact, appeals over the course of the year should talk to each other. They should make sense in context. So yeah, maybe there could be, for Light Up a Life, what we're going to see this year is a lift in future appeal responses. Or if you're a charity that doesn't do something like Light Up a Life, just a lift in the other appeals that you send out over the course of the year, maybe Christmas. I had high fives in here and then I realized how stupid that was because no one can touch each other. So maybe virtual high fives, maybe a little bit of kudos online. That's quite nice. It's something that's important in context with all of these things. Oh yeah, all of the above. So when we look at audience, what we tended to do over the past few years, and we've kind of gained this knowledge working with a lovely charity down south here. So I'm in Brighton, called Chestnut Tree House and St. Barnabas House, and they're over in Worthing and Arundel. We have done quite a few raffles with them over the years. They do a super draw every year in January. And previously they used to do January and July. And then previous to that, it used to look more like September and May. So a lot of the information that we have about audience selection kind of comes from our work with these guys. So we used to mail quite a few people. We used to make a mail file that kind of looked like a mail file for our general appeals or a cash appeal. But then we started to whittle down those cash donors because they weren't as responsive as we'd like them to be. And what we ended up with was a big selection of previous rafflers. We then looked at long-standing lottery players and people who have multiple lines in the lottery. And then anybody in the past year who won't have actually seen one of your raffles before. So what we're trying to do essentially is get your mail file over a mail sort amount. So mail sort is 4,000. But also just make sure that the people that are seeing it are people who A, haven't seen it before, or B, are the sort of person based on their past behavior that we think might actually respond to something like a raffle. The other thing that we started to do, which has been quite successful, is for anybody who's maybe mailing out a newsletter that comes within the month or two after when you first put out the raffle, we've started to split that mail file out and give tickets to the people who didn't get that first mailing. So we're giving people an opportunity to say, yeah, I'm actually interested in doing this. I would like to buy some raffle tickets. And then we're not giving tickets to those who got the mailing because they already got it. And we're not spending that extra money on tickets if we don't need to. But in any case, you could actually think about just mailing out tickets again. The actual cost of tickets isn't all that much when you're looking at thousands and thousands of them. Then we've started to kind of go into this arena. So ticketless version for online and potential email buyers. I know that there's some legal logistics over sending this stuff over email and actually selling things online, but it's definitely an area that I think we should start to look at as we go forward into the digital age, essentially. Okay, I don't know if I can share my sound. I'm going to have to figure that out very quickly. Otherwise, we're going to have to skip this. Hold on. Now, to preface this clip, because who doesn't want to watch Friends on Thursday mornings? When I used to work for a charity, which was a few years back now, I used to try to get kids into volunteer work. And one of the things that I used to talk to them about quite specifically and intentionally was about thinking about why people do good stuff. And I think this sort of discussion is particularly relevant for the raffle. I want us to think about the motivations behind why people actually buy raffle tickets. And then I want you to think also about why people buy raffle tickets for you. Because I think it's important to remember that people don't just do good stuff because it's good. They also do it because in some way it's going to benefit them. So this is just a little bit of light entertainment for a Thursday morning.
Sorry, Phoebes. I just wanted to do a good deed, like you did with the babies.
This isn't a good deed. You just want to get on TV. This is totally selfish.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. What about you having those babies for your brother? Talk about selfish.
What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, it was a really nice thing and all, but it made you feel really good, right?
Yeah, so?
Well, it made you feel good, so that makes it selfish. Look, there's no unselfish good deeds, sorry.
Yes, there are. There are totally good deeds that are selfless.
Well, may I ask for one example?
Yeah, it's, there's... No, you may not.
That's because all people are selfish.
Are you calling me selfish?
Are you calling you people? Yeah, well, sorry to burst that bubble, Phoebes, but selfless good deeds don't exist, okay? And you know the deal on Santa Claus, right?
I'm gonna find a selfless good deed. I'm gonna beat you, you evil genius.
All right. So this isn't to say that all people are selfish. I think it's really interesting to think about these ideas. And if we could do a whole webinar on altruism, I think that would be super interesting. And if anybody's up for that, let me know. Let's do it. But I think it's really important to think about people's motivation when we come to the proposition. And this informs why we make the pack, the direct mail pack that we do. All right. So the proposition for a raffle that we have tended to go along is, first and foremost, you could win something, but also you could help your favorite charity. Okay. So it's really important that we get both of these messages into a raffle. And in most cases in the past few years, when we've made a raffle, when Pebble Beach has made a raffle, that first part of that sentence is the primary driver for the raffle. But we always include, what do you need money for now? So what does the charity or hospice or wherever you're coming from need money for now? And how does buying 10 or 20 tickets actually help with that particular mission? Okay. So when we get to the example for St. Barnabas Links, when we get to the example, we're going to show how those two things kind of coincide. But ultimately, some of the creative that I've been showing you within these slides, we're really looking at the money part first. And that's because the motivation for lots of people playing the raffle is, I could win a bit of something, but also it's helping you guys out. And I think it's also really important to think about that in context with this year. I know that I've been kind of going on about this, and maybe if you've been speaking to Ash and Chelsea and Naomi and Emily and the team, we've all been kind of going on about this, but it's been a tough year for a lot of people. So when you think about money and that as a motivation, it's not a bad thing to think that actually for people, this might be something that gives them a little bit of hope and a little bit of fun in what's been a pretty horrible year. All right, planning and timing. When? As I mentioned to you guys before, we like to look at a free space in the calendar. So what we don't want to do is kind of shove the raffle in around something else and then split who we're giving that to, depending on whether you think that that person should get a cash appeal or a raffle. We want to give it its own breathing space. And so that's what I mentioned to you about January. January tends to be a little bit free within the calendar, but it's also a time when a lot of people have, they've spent a lot of money maybe at Christmas time, and they're thinking, hey, maybe if I buy a raffle ticket, I could win something. That would be quite nice. It's something to look forward to. So we tend to like January. We like the end of January for a New Year raffle. Because it means that you've got Christmas out of the way, you've got your Light Up a Life out of the way, you've got other cash appeals out of the way. And if you're thinking about a spring appeal, it's still a couple months away. We tend to take about 6 to 8 weeks to start and finish a raffle. We can do one a little bit quicker, and maybe you've found that you can do one a bit quicker, but just to make sure that we've got all the things in place, that's about the time it takes. And that's because of tickets. If this can coincide with a newsletter that you're going to send out or some other sort of communication that makes sense that everybody's going to get, you can essentially print more tickets to allow that to go into that newsletter or communication. It just means that while you're going to the trouble of printing all those tickets, you can add a couple extra thousand on, and everybody can get them if they need to. The other thing that I would say that's sort of a new development, ticket printers are a little bit like unicorns at this point. They're very rare. If you do see one, let me know. It takes time to print tickets. Now, there's not somebody with an old-fashioned machine that's just cutting them out. However, those do exist. But the people who have the capacity to print tickets these days are less and less. There's a lot of change happening in the print industry. And so if you do want to do something like that, you need to give plenty of time to be able to find the unicorn that you need to be able to print your tickets. All right, creative. So this is the fun part that we like to go into afterwards. We do use imagery. So by imagery, I mean we use photographs of people and service users and people who are cared for, if it's at a hospice, or people who benefit from the charity within packs, if people are comfortable with that. We like these to be eye-catching and simple. So I think this picture here is quite a good example of showing exactly, this is for a children's hospice, showing exactly what that charity does and how important it is. It's also important that that imagery stays on the message. So when I showed you those previous two raffles, so the Summer Super Draw and the New Year raffle, they're pretty summer and New Year's based. So the actual look of them is around the season and what's actually happening then. I think with raffles as well, you've got an opportunity to be a little bit more playful and creative than maybe you do in some of the cash appeals that you might send out. It's a bit of fun, and it should be fun, and we should be able to take a little bit of fun design time to actually make this look a little bit exciting and do the fun things that you would do if you were working for, I don't know, an ad agency somewhere or something like that. This is the time where you can actually do that. Direct mail pack and digital stuff. First of all, with the direct mail pack, we have found over the years that the stickers work. This is granted just examples and hearsay from charities that we've worked with before, but it tends to be that if you put a sticker sheet in, so those are the sticker sheets that have people's names and addresses on them, the tickets tend to come back with those stickers on them. So people like them. It seems to be something that's worth spending the money on for people to get them. Plus also they get a few extra, so if they want to mail something out, they've got their own little address label. Equally, it has to be really easy to join. So when we're thinking about creating this pack, and again, we'll show you this in the example, we want there to be as few elements as possible to get the point across, but also to help people get joined in very quickly and easily. And so sometimes less is more. I say this a lot. I think maybe Ash and I differ in this regard, but I think with raffles, this is definitely the key thing. We want to give everyone a chance to take part. So we've got the direct mail pack, and that's going to go to a very specific group of people. Then we've got the newsletter, which potentially grows that audience and gives you a few more people to buy tickets. But then also, is there an opportunity for us to put this online somewhere? So is it going on the website? Is it going to go on social media? Is there a way for you to capture those ticket buys online? If so, it just means that everybody that loves you and follows you and does stuff for you has the opportunity to take part in this. And it also builds up your file for the next time that you actually want to do a raffle. Okay, so here's St. Barnabas Links' example. If we go through the 5 things that we were just talking about, measuring outcomes, for these guys, yeah, I'm trying to move this. Keeping in touch, gift aid, declarations, and money were pretty much the primary goals of actually sending out this raffle. Audience, we sent out 2 direct mails, and these were to different audiences for different reasons. One was a traditional raffle pack, which went to a very specific group of people, I think around 7,000. And then another one was a gift aid letter, essentially. We were asking people to sign a gift aid declaration, but also if they had the chance and opportunity and they wanted to, we gave them a ticketless option. So we gave them a little grid with their ticket numbers, and they were allowed to buy from there if they'd like. This went out on all the socials as well. The proposition, so this is called the Brighter Tomorrow raffle. So I think you probably get the gist of it just from that. But first of all, pay for compassionate care for people throughout Lincolnshire. Be in with a chance to win a cash prize. I mean, those two are sort of interchangeable in terms of how we position them. And then help the charity through this time to be there for more local families. So I can say that I'm pretty sure that these guys sent out an appeal in April. This would have been an appeal saying, here's where we're at, here's what the pandemic is doing, and here's why we need your support. And so this one going out in July obviously continued that message, because we haven't seen sort of a breakthrough in what's happening around the world. We need to continue talking to people about what's happening at the charity now, because that keeps changing. Planning and timing, these landed on the 2nd and 10th of July, respectively, along with the first posts for social media. And then the social plan, I think, kept going until the draw, which I can't remember when that was. The draw was in early September, I think. All right, creative. So this is what it looked like, essentially. All right, so you've got a ticket up there, pretty traditional ticket. It's got the imagery that you like to see, the big, bold imagery. This is their sunflower, so that kind of makes sense within context of the things that they like to do and send out. The bottom is obviously their outer envelope, huge, lovely image, nice and bright, nice and sunny. Maybe, well, not maybe, I think it's quite different to what would be sent out in a cash appeal. But again, this is because we're looking at, this is a bit of fun, this is a bit of hope, this is about a brighter tomorrow, essentially. So we want to get that across with the creative. And then this is an Instagram post. So on the side there, there's Sue, who's the voice of the appeal. She is the ward manager at St. Barnabas Links. And I haven't mentioned this before, but yeah, if you're going to do something with creative, incorporate the people in your teams that do the jobs, if they're up for it. I know raffle's not for everybody and gambling's not for everybody, but if they're cool with it, they're quite nice to have within that. So this is what the pack was made out with. So it was an A4 letter with an integrated form. If you've worked with us before, we don't always do an integrated form. We tend to like to have a separate one. But going back to how we build this, sometimes less is more. So we don't want to put in stuff if we don't need to, if we think that it'll work without it. There's the outer envelope, which you just saw, a business reply envelope, obviously to send the tickets back, sticker sheet, because people like them, and then obviously your tickets. So before I show you this, I'm going to put a caveat on the results, in that this was an extremely successful appeal. So I'm showing you this as what is possible, but not always possible. It's not an average result. It's a great result, and it's within a specific year, so this year. And so there's a lot of factors that we just don't know. We don't know whether these are impacting how people respond to these things, but I would imagine it's probably the case. So with the ticketless raffle, remember, this is the one that we were asking people to sign their gift aid declaration. We mailed about 18,000, and they had 549 responders. So the goal there was for gift aid consent, but also email permission. And everybody had 20 ticket spaces within that letter to be able to choose how many tickets they'd like to purchase. The ticketed version was mailed to 7,000. Everybody got 20 tickets, and I can go into that if somebody's got a question about why everybody got 20 tickets. I'm happy to answer that. 2,140 people purchased tickets, which is huge. We have never seen a result like that with a raffle. So this year is definitely playing some kind of tricks with appeals, but that's a huge result. Of those people, nearly £40,000 in ticket purchases, 16,000 in donations. So if I go back to proposition, remember I said money first, but then there's a secondary proposition, obviously just as important, well, more important. What's happening at your charity now? Why do you need the money? What's the important thing that's happening there? So for these guys, it was an ongoing communication about, people need care. People are still coming to us for care. We are stretched. Everybody's been working hard for months and months and months, and we need your support to keep going. But also, all of our events have been canceled. So the support that you give us today, whether it's through tickets or donation or both, is going to make a huge difference to the care we can deliver throughout this county. Okay, so that's a huge message. And I would say, this is a question that Chelsea asked me yesterday, which I went back to Debbie at St. Barnabas and asked, that 16,000 in donations, sometimes people just donate to the raffle. Sometimes they don't buy tickets. Sometimes they just needed something in front of them to be able to send a check back in. And that did happen here. So the total that they earned for this raffle was over 70,000 with gift aid, which is huge. Oh, that's the only total I've got. That's not very helpful. But the other results to this, obviously, because the goal for the ticket list was obviously email permissions and gift aid, was a few hundred of each of those. So a few hundred gift aid consents that they didn't have before, and a few hundred email addresses that they can now use to go forward with their other appeals. So if we're talking about the raffle direct mail, the pack that goes out in the post, that's the core thing that we create first. And then we think about all the other places that we can put that. So the easiest one over here on my right is tickets within the newsletter. That is something that we have done pretty much every time we've done a raffle in the past few years. And it's just because it's an easy thing to do. If you've got extra tickets, which you can stick in there for people who didn't see it, you will see a lift in response for your raffle for that case. There could be a reminder to your best raffler, so people who've played in the last few years that maybe haven't responded yet. That could be as simple as just a letter. And if you do have some extras and you want to send some tickets, you could do that too. Email to opt-ins for ticket lists, and then ticket lists on your website as well. It's really important to think about how you can do that. Alrighty. So this is one we did earlier this year. Some thoughts on making an impact. I think I've got another one here. Yep. So we want to make things bright, optimistic, and fun. And I think especially for this year, that's really key. It's been a rough year. It's been a rough year. And if you can put bunnies and chicks on something, please do it. Please make us look at those bunnies, because it's just so much nicer to look at than the news every day, unfortunately. A little bit of diversion isn't a bad thing. Again, going back to that last slide, getting everybody on board, making sure that there's nothing competing with that campaign. Make the whole organization get on board with the raffle that month or however long you want to promote it. Spread the word far and wide as far as you can. And I know that this is really tricky and becoming more tricky as we go along, but if there are organizations that support you, churches and schools, well, maybe not schools, churches and other organizations that are okay with gambling and they can help you, think about, ask them, think about how they can possibly help to spread the raffle tickets around. And again, I know this is really, really tricky because obviously we're talking about something that you can touch in a time when we're not supposed to touch things that other people have touched. So if there's a way to do this ticket list, this might be the year to start thinking about how those things can happen. Oh. And some other things. All my animations are wrong. Money wins over stuff. So this is the prize fund. We have done quite a few raffles over the years and started out quite a few years back, so maybe 7 or 8 years back, where stuff was part of the option. So I'm thinking like cars and holidays and things like that. We did a few with St. Barnabas Hospice and Chestnut Tree House where you could choose. Almost exclusively, the person chose cash over the prizes. So that's not to say that if you get a car donated, you shouldn't be raffling it, because you should. But if you have the option to get a cash prize donated instead, or just offer a cash prize, that usually is the thing that gets people going. If you think about it, not everybody can drive, so having a car is a little bit strange. Holidays is obviously out for quite a while. So cash might be a better option just for the next couple of years, regardless of what evidence you've had previous to this. Make it fun, obviously, with sensitivity to what's going on in the world right now. As I mentioned before, if we talk about the St. Barnabas pack, it wasn't fancy, it looked nice, it didn't have loads of stuff in it because it didn't need to. We had a letter from Sue, the ward manager, and then we had some tickets and the envelopes and the stickers to make it all happen. You don't need to put too much in. Spreading the tickets around, making online possible, if there's an avenue for exploration there, to give it a shot. And I think I went over this in the digital seminar that we did a few months back, making sure that your website form has the capacity for people to purchase tickets. I know that that's not always possible, but if it is an option to make it easy to do, then definitely get that going. The other thing that I'd say is, so I mentioned Sue, the ward manager. We have to have an opportunity to talk about what's actually going on right now. The purpose behind the Brighter Tomorrow raffle with those guys is that, yes, things are scary and things have been stretched and money has been tight, but there is optimism for the future. And I think with any of the appeals that you maybe send out over the year, this is an opportunity to be optimistic. It's something that, if you're going to reflect the creative, it's something that looks bright and sunny, and hopefully something to look forward to. No, that's exactly what I just said. People do like to help you. They have the evidence from this year in terms of the appeals that we have helped with, is that people are still giving. And although that might change in the next few months, people might be more cash strapped. We have to keep sending out communications that tell people what's going on, because without that information, they don't have the choice or the option to make a decision to help. So raffles are quite easy to make. I mean, relative to other appeals, there's logistical stuff with the print that it can be a bit tricky, but ultimately it is one of the easier things that you could probably send out. And as I say, this year's raffle results across the board have been great. People have been home a lot more. People want to win some money. And so all of those things are going to combine, and people probably taking part if they can. Okay, so just before we go over to questions, I don't know how much time we've got. How long have I waited on? I probably have gone on longer than I thought. Before I go into other questions, we thought that probably the next webinar that we're going to do is going to be in January. So for hospices, we thought Light Up a Life Best in Show. So what have hospices done for Light Up a Life while it's still fresh in the memory? That was pretty amazing this year. So I've heard some hospices say they're doing projections on cathedral walls, which is going to be amazing. All sorts of creative and innovative things that I think it would be amazing if we could share with the whole community. So that is planned for January. We don't have a date yet, but if you've got something that's going on at your hospice, Light Up a Life or Lights of Love or whatever we happen to call it, we would love to hear about it. And we're going to put all those things together and get everybody the ideas to be able to look forward to the future for next year. Okay, so that's my presentation. Chelsea, are you there?
Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
This is Chelsea. Chelsea has been busy collating questions. Have we got questions?
We do have some questions.
Okay.
We'll just go from top to bottom. It's easier that way.
Okay.
So what would you say would be the average result for a first-time raffle?
First time raffle. So never done one before. Okay, so there's a few different factors here. I think for first time raffle, and this is one of the logistical questions that I think I probably need to address first of all. The thing about a raffle is that you need to, and this is all secondhand knowledge, you need to make sure that the profit that you make includes 20% that's going to go back to the cause, so back to your charity. Okay, so you need to factor that in, and in order to do that, I'd say you probably need at least 4,000 people to mail. 4,000 people that are eligible to mail. What a lot of hospices do, or charities generally do, is they use their lottery to bump up that 20%. So they'll do what's called a super draw, which means that they're getting enough income in from the lottery to cover that 20% profit. So what would I say? So I think probably on average, before we have ever done, so if we're coming in to do a raffle for the first time, what we tend to see is sort of around 15 to 20K of profit for a raffle in-house. And that will be probably to people who've done a raffle before. Obviously, if this is your first time, you won't have that. So you'd be sending it to cash donors. If you've got lottery players, you'd be sending it to them. But again, you have to send it to at least 4,000. So I would probably, and this is a finger in the air guess, I would probably say 15K would be an optimistic but not unreasonable goal for a first raffle. But again, the caveat is you've got to have enough people to be able to mail that too. Does that make sense? Just guessing.
The next question was, what was the split for the St. Barnabas links between ticketless and tickets?
Oh, you mean donation wise?
I think both.
So the ticketed made 38 grand and then another 16 grand a donation. So the most money, the majority of the money, 3/4 of the money came from the ticketed one. But I don't think that that's because it was ticketed. I think that was because the people that we were targeting for that were raffle and lottery people. So it made sense that we were asking them. The gift aid one was a different audience. It was, please do this gift aid thing that we need you to do, but also here's some tickets if you want to do this thing because you can't buy tickets in shops, etc. So we sort of framed the proposition differently for those people, but added on that ticket list thing to give it a shot. And the evidence shows that people did respond to it, but it wasn't huge numbers. It's not necessarily going to make all your money for the raffle. Having said that, is it a good time to try ticketless? I don't know the answer. I wish I did know the answer to that. I think with St. Barnabas links, and I'm sure Debbie would be happy to talk to you guys about this as well. We did talk about just doing a ticketless raffle, but there's a little bit of hesitancy about that because it is kind of confusing. And if you think about your audience, and I found it confusing, and I potentially maybe understand more about it than a lot of the people getting it in the post. So we just need to make sure that it's something that's right for experimentation. And I'm not sure this is the year to do that. So maybe stick with ticketed for the time being.
I think it's also important on the St. Barnabas links one is that they were going to have to mail all the gift aid people anyway. So that money was going to have to be spent. So it was kind of let's see if we can get some back.
Yeah.
The next question was, what was the total cost of the mailing for St. Barnabas links? I've looked and I don't think we actually have all of the figures back in, so we could go back separately actually.
Yeah, I'd say so. The total cost of the actual print and postage for that, we do have that amount. If you email us, we can probably tell you, but you've got to factor in print and postage. Tickets cost a certain amount per hundreds of thousands of tickets. But as I said to you before, like just adding on a few thousand tickets doesn't cost that much extra. I mean, you might be looking, if you add another few thousand on, you're looking at maybe like 50 to 100 quid extra. So it is worth maximizing how many tickets you purchase if that's the route you want to go down. Yeah, so sorry, I don't know the direct answer to that, but obviously they spent money printing and posting and us helping them to do that. But arguably they made more profit than if potentially they had done it in-house.
The next one, how many raffles would we recommend doing a year?
I think the answer to that lies in your own history. So traditionally, so if I go back to St. Barnabas in Worthing, They used to do 2 raffles a year. So they would do, as I said, it started out like March or May and September, and then moved to January and July when we got involved. So we were doing 2 a year. But then they ended up just doing 1, which was at the end of January, because the cost implications meant that they were maximizing 1 raffle a year. They were maximizing the income from that, and they weren't making as much from the second one. However, there are charities that are successful at doing 2. So if I think about Trinity and Blackpool, we've worked with them for a number of years. They have done January and July for quite a while. I think they make profit on both of those, and that's the benchmark for them. The other thing that you need to think about is obviously your time to be able to carry out both appeals. If you think you could make more profit doing something else for the time that you spend doing the raffle, then obviously that's got to be a consideration in deciding what to do. I would say generally what we have found is that the January raffles tend to do better than July ones. The exception would be this year, because all of the July raffles that have happened this year have been ridiculous. So they've beat hands down the January and early Feb ones that we did earlier this year. I would probably say that there's a reason for that, and we all know what that is.
Next question. Sorry, I've lost where I was in this. I had one job and I've managed to lose my place.
One job, Chelsea.
One job and I've screwed it up. I will never be trusted.
I know
to
it's
do
Thursday.
The questions again.
On.
I'll be struck off. Oh, I'm panicking now.
You're not going to be the raffle MC anymore.
I'm not. This is the first time I've done it. I'm getting hot.
Where's Naomi? There she is. Naomi,
does anyone have any suggestions for how they can support raffles online? Currently, the website payment provider doesn't support raffle payments. Do we know of?
Yeah, that is a perpetual problem. Unfortunately, when a lot of the payment mechanisms go into websites, they're not always considered with all of the options. I think this is probably a question that needs to be thrown out to the rest of the community. So if anybody does know the answer to that, can you let me know? Or what solution you've implemented for your own website to make that happen, if you have done that. I'll also check around some of the people that we've worked with before and see if they have an answer. And then if I do get that, I'll mail it out to everybody, so we've got that. So not helpful, but
we've had a few from Laura, so I'll do all of Laura's at one time. So she has said, we have seen a print pack design with the letter and tickets are all one print item. What are our thoughts on this approach versus the standard letter pack that we've mentioned?
It's cheaper. So we're talking about ticket list, right? I'm guessing.
I'm going to assume so, unless it's like a concertina with all the tickets.
Yeah.
Which would be quite cool. So
I'm going to be totally honest with you. The reason that we didn't go ticket list with St. Barnabas Links, which I mentioned before, totally ticket list, is because we don't have any information on how it does. So we work, particularly with this thing, this is science for us. We work on evidence. We work on the evidence that tickets work and people like them and people like the stickers. And so people make profit on those appeals. We have seen a few ticket list raffles, but I don't know how they've done. I have no idea how much money they've made. So if your own charity has done one and you have information on that versus your ticketed ones, that would be really amazing to have and give out to everybody.
Chris has actually commented on the group chat as well, said that the last raffle was very low on ticket lists. So thank you, Chris, for sharing that.
Yeah, I think to be honest, it's just one of those things that people don't really get it. And if they got it, it might be more profitable. Is it a question of having to do it more often so they get it? Possibly. And then you're just going to have to take the hit for a few years while people start to understand it. I think the problem is, as I said to you before, the layout of so what you have on the top of that form is the ticket list bracket, which is basically a grid with numbers in it. Then you've got a letter and then you've got a form. And the look of that is quite difficult, I think, because it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of numbers and it's a lot of stuff. And so I think that partially, that what's the word I'm looking for? The unfamiliarity of that is quite off-putting, I think, to people. Whereas a raffle ticket conjures up images of a, I don't know, you know, the town raffle and bake sales and tombolas and stuff like that. So there's association with things that you see that I think people are comfortable with, especially the audiences that a lot of you are working with, which might be the over 55s, people who are still comfortable writing checks, all that kind of stuff. So all of that needs to be taken into consideration when trying it. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do ticketless. It just means that there has to be a little bit of an expectation that maybe it's going to take a few years to build up.
The next question from Laura is, why did we send all people 20 tickets instead of different tickets depending on data segments?
Well, okay, so the answer to that is that, and I've probably gone on about this too much, is that the run-on cost for extra tickets isn't that much. And so if there's an opportunity, I'll say this, but we used to do ticket book logic, and that the idea of ticket book logic is if they didn't respond last time, or if they're new, you only give them 10. So that you see what happens. And this also has to do with the groupings of tickets. So whether you give them a book of 20 or 2 books of 10. And what we found is that for the extra cost of 20 tickets, the profit was still more. So if you gave everybody 20 tickets, it didn't cost that much extra, but you had the opportunity for people to go all the way to the end of the book. So the reason that you do 1 full book of tickets is because people don't stop. The idea is that people don't stop halfway through. Whereas if you give them 2 books of 10, they'll be like, oh, I'll do 1 of these. And then that's it. So we've landed on the book of 20 continuous for the extra cost of printing however many thousand extra tickets. It wasn't that much. And what you tended to see in those situations is that people went all the way to the end of the book with the donation. So there was a lot of 20 £20 raffle ticket buys. That's not to say that it's not right for everybody. You can, if you've got evidence to the contrary, if you've got evidence that, you know, maybe giving 10 to newsletter people, or wait, sorry, I should say we gave 10 to newsletter people, we didn't give 20 to them. If you give 10 to lottery players and that works, then go for it. But then the next time around, you need to consider upping those tickets so that you can get more from them.
And the last question from Laura is, in a normal year, non-COVID, what times of year would we see the highest income? So if we're going to do a raffle each quarter, which quarter would we say would perform the best?
I mean, I'll be a little bit hesitant about doing them every quarter because I think there's probably some cash asks that you need to incorporate in there. The thing about raffle is it's not for everybody. And so what we're doing is giving people an opportunity to join in. So people who are new to the database who've just joined, we're giving them the opportunity to do that the first and maybe second time around. And if they don't, then they're not part of the mail file anymore. And those people need to see something else. So I would actually probably look at a little bit of breathing space. So sorry, was the question how many or when?
When would be the best time? Which quarter would we say is the best?
As I said before, I think a lot of charities have kind of moved these into quarters or into spaces within the calendar that don't disrupt any of their bigger cash appeals. So for example, if you work for a hospice and you do Light Up a Life, you probably want to avoid anything around Christmas time because those cash appeals are going to be way bigger for you than doing a raffle. And I should have mentioned before that a lot of the ways that we create mail files is we always look at everybody from the start and then whittle down who should be getting each appeal. So for example, if we were doing a Light Up a Life, a Christmas and a raffle, there's a big portion of that group. And so that's October, November, and January. There's a big portion of people in there that are going to all get the same, they're all going to get it. And so we just need to be mindful of that and not carve people up into groups that don't make sense. If they're a huge supporter of you and they've given to you in the last year, then it makes sense that they should see all of those things. And so we just need to be aware that if you send out 4 raffles and you're giving it to the people that should get it, then they're all going to get that as well as all the cash that you do. So I personally would say maybe 2's plenty. In as I said, January and July seem to do well, but if you've got other things that you can shift around, like maybe you're not doing a cash appeal in March, then go for March. Maybe go March and August, see what happens with the, maybe the contingent in your database that's older and doesn't go on holiday in August is big, and maybe that's a better option for you. But it's really about knowing who your donors are and what they like.
Chris has asked, not Chris, sorry. Honestly, I'm going to get sacked from this. It's one job I've got of reading out.
I mean, you're on a red card, Chelsea, I think.
Oh my God. Carl, sorry, Carl. Carl has asked, when do you mail out for an end of January draw?
So for next January, which I can't believe I'm talking about right now, we are going to be mailing those on Wednesday, the 27th of January. The reason that we mail them on the 27th, which is a Wednesday, is that we like things to land on a Friday so that people have all weekend to fill in their raffle tickets. Because to be honest, we're not going to have anything else to do on the 29th of January, unfortunately. We are all going to be hoping that we get raffle tickets in the post, myself included, because we don't have anything else to do. So so short answer, 27th of Jan is when we're mailing out. There is nothing to say that those can't go out in February. It doesn't really matter. The idea is that obviously we want people to have been paid after the new year. So we would aim for the last week because it means that people have had a paycheck after Christmas, which is always an expensive time, but also gives them a bit of hope to maybe recoup some of that by winning the raffle.
So if it's a raffle that is being drawn in January, when would we
being drawn in January?
Well, either. If it's being drawn in January, when would we want those tickets to land? Like tomorrow, really. Yeah.
I mean, I would probably give like, I'd say on average, it's like sort of 9 to 12 weeks to bring the tickets in. Every charity's different though. I mean, in terms of how long they leave the draw. Obviously something to look forward to in January, but the incentive has to be, the thing is people are going to be less, this sounds really cynical, but people are going to be less happy in January than they are in December. So the idea of looking forward to something in January seems a bit weird. It's almost better to leave that message until January, because then people are like, okay, now I got something to look forward to. But yeah, so yeah, as you said, Chelsea, I think if they're sending it out, I would send it out soon, because there's probably some Christmas appeals that are going to be landing in the next few weeks as well.
That's all the questions, but Abby has shared some insight. She has said that they were in a similar situation. They used to do spring and summer, and now only do one in spring, as income for both dropped. The one on its own now performs better, as they can focus on it being an annual product. And they've also found that giving people 10 weeks from the mail date to draw date is the sweet spot. 7 weeks is way too short, and sales were lower.
Is that Abby from Lewis Manning or a different Abby?
Abby Floyd.
Oh, hi, Abby Floyd. Yeah, super. That's really helpful. I mean, again, all we can say is what we've noticed from evidence. I think raffle for us, as I said to you before, is a science. We use the evidence that we've gotten over the years to help us make decisions about what to do next. And we do that a lot with data anyway, but raffle is really, really about making sure that we capitalize on stuff that we know works. Obviously, this year is a different year. But all the evidence has been pointing to people being supportive in all the ways that they're being supportive. So that's cash, that's raffle, that's in every single thing that we've been sending out. Of course, that could change in the next few months, but hopefully your core supporters will still be there for you for whatever you send them.
Oh, we've got a last minute question come in. What do we think of a super raffle with limited tickets available for sale?
I don't ever think that there's so many people buying tickets that you'd want to limit it. So if we go back to the St. Barnabas Links one, if you consider that, and this is actually quite a lot of people buying tickets, so there was probably about 3,000 ticket buyers across both sets, your odds definitely go down. So I think the question here is really about, if you make the odds better for people, do you think that more of them will respond? The thing is, you're just kind of cutting into your profit by doing that. And I don't think that there's enough of I don't think there's enough people who are gonna buy into that to make a difference. So, I mean, personally, I wouldn't recommend doing it, but you know, I would love to know what happens scientifically if you do decide to do that. I just think like make sure that everybody gets an option to do it. Just a personal example. So I've been, this is how sad that I've been this year. In addition to so many other people, that I've started doing these house raffles. So you can go online and basically like somebody might be auctioning off their Tuscan villa. There's one that I just entered for Rocking Horse Children's Charity in Brighton. They're basically raffling off a apartment in Hove, a flat in Hove on the seafront. And so basically they get a critical mass of people buying these tickets, but then you have an option, you basically get an opportunity to win an entire flat. I've been doing that because it just seems like a bit of fun. And like, if I want a flat, that'd be kind of amazing. But those rely on a certain amount of people be actually entering to make it work. And arguably your raffles do too, because you need to pay for the print and postage. And if we're helping you, you need to help pay for us. And it needs to make a certain amount of profit. So I don't know how a limited draw would help you to do that, and be in line with the Gambling Commission's guidelines as well. But again, if somebody else has different evidence, we'd love to hear it.
That's all the questions, unless anyone has any more.
No, I think that's probably, I think everybody's probably had enough of raffles by now.
I'm going to remute myself, so.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Chelsea. Yeah, so just to round up, obviously we are always here if you want to just bounce an idea off us or you've got a question. If some of those questions around evidence are pressing and you want to ask us, I'm quite happy to go to some of our charity friends and ask them if they've had any experience of it, if we haven't been able to answer it here. I mean, essentially, as I say, the evidence I think is important in raffles in a way that maybe it's a little bit more difficult to see in cash appeals and propositions around cash appeals and things like that. And in a way that's a good thing, because it means that we can use that to make educated decisions about what we're going to send out and when we're going to send it out and who we're going to send it to. So yeah, I think there is a very big opportunity based on what we've seen this year for people to make good raffles be really fun and exciting for the people that support you. So I hope that was sort of useful to everybody. But obviously, if there's anything else that you need to know, just drop any of us a line. So there's Emily. She's right here for me, but that doesn't help you. Chelsea, Naomi, I think Ash is in here somewhere. Ash, do you see how I finished at 11:02? Just pointing that out to you. And Helen is normally here, but it's a Thursday, she's not working today. So if you've got any questions about anything, it's just our names at pebblebeachfundraising.com. Just drop us a line. So Amy at Pebblebeach Fundraising, you can email hello@Pebblebeach Fundraising. I'm going to put this up on YouTube and then put it up on our website later today. And then I'll send that link around to you guys, and then you can send that to whoever you like. And yeah, I wish you the best of luck. May the, no, I was going to say, may the force be with you, but I was thinking the Hunger Games. Anyway, thanks for spending Thursday morning with us. And yeah, we hope to see you soon.